Everybody believes that if I work harder and I continue to work really, really hard, I can increase my base salary and how much I'm worth. If that was true, we would all be multimillionaires. My name's Taz. I'm a woman. I'm brown. I grew up in Birmingham. I was raised by a single mum on free school meals. I've spent the last few years navigating corporate exec life. And what I've learned over the years is there is a set of corporate rules nobody is saying out loud. And that's why I created this podcast. This space is for us to unpack those rules and to help you figure out how you want to navigate the system and engage with it. I would love for you to follow on Office Real Talk on Instagram or TikTok and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, so we can get more of us listening and winning in the corporate world. Hi and welcome to today's episode of Office Real Talk with Taz. Today I'm going to get into the topic that everybody thinks about but feels taboo. It's money. What I want to talk to you about is how you maximize your earnings and your earning potential in the corporate world. So let's start with our beliefs around money. Now, the first thing is everybody believes that if I work harder and I continue to work really, really hard, I can increase my base salary and how much I'm worth. If that was true, we would all be multimillionaires, especially those of us who put in the extra hours, who show up to everything, who say yes to everything. Yet, we know people are getting paid more than us. That's number one. The second thing is many people believe that if I stay within the same organisation, if I continue to keep working hard, if I keep showing up, I show my loyalty, that loyalty will be rewarded. It's better to stay in the same organisation and get those incremental pay rises, which in the long run give me more stability and more money than it is to leave. And the last thing that people believe is negotiation isn't okay. They believe it's awkward. They believe that they shouldn't do it. And also people believe that if they negotiate, they will be seen as difficult. They will be seen as hard work. They will be seen as someone who's not grateful for what they've been given. And that also is a myth that we need to bust and a mindset that we need to unlearn. You don't get paid what you're worth. You get paid what you're willing to negotiate. And negotiation is a skill and an art form that we have never been taught and we never leverage. Let's start with the first nugget then. Most people go into organisations in their first job or in a job that they're already in or into a conversation with a line manager trying to guess their worth. They go in thinking, oh my God, what's the number I need to ask for? What is that magic number? My DMs on Office Real Talk are full of people saying, what percentage should I go for? How do I ask for the right number? Is there a baseline? Is there an average in the industry? The truth is, there isn't one. You need to stop guessing what you're worth. The way to do this is quite scientific. So you need to start with figuring out what is it that you think you want. And by that, we all have a magic number in our head sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean that's what you're going to get, but it's what you think you want. So as an example, I might think, well, I want to get 10K more because that's my magic number. And that 10K doesn't need to be based in, well, here's how much I need for my mortgage or here's how much I need for my next holiday. It's literally just based in what do I want. Now, if I say I want an extra 100K for this job, we know I'm a bit deluded. But you could go in thinking, well, 10K is a really ambitious North Star number that I want. That's number one. Number two, you need to start looking around you and thinking about what is happening in the market. Now, the market has two variations. The first is the external market. Find jobs like yours in organisations like yours. So if you work in travel, go and look for people who do roles like yours that are being advertised in travel. Most jobs now should, but don't always have, a pay range or a maximum income that they will provide in that role. Don't, if you work in travel, go and compare yourself to someone in investment banking. That's just stupid. Doesn't even matter if they're your age or they look like you or they live by you. You are not comparing like for like. You need to compare apples for apples, not apples for pears. You need to find an industry that's exactly the same as yours or at least similar and a role that looks similar. Now, obviously, there'll always be nuances, but that's the first thing you need to do in the external market. The second one is the internal market. Now, look, I know it's taboo, especially in British culture, to go and ask people what they're paid in an organisation. I'm not asking you to do that. Go and have a look at your internal job boards. They will tell you what jobs are being advertised for. Some of those internal jobs are being advertised externally on recruitment websites, on LinkedIn. You can see what the pay is there. You can also go and check things like pay ranges, which major corporations do have. Start understanding where you sit. Where are you within kind of jobs that look like yours, feel like yours, or do similar things? So what you've now got is how much you want, what the external market would value you at, and what your internal market value is. They are three things that now give you data points. So you are not guessing your worth. The science now happens when you look at the sum of those parts and you look at those three numbers and go, well, I want 10 grand more. The external market is paying about 8 grand more for this. The internal market is paying about 6 grand more. Then you have a choice about what you go and ask for. Now, some people will go and ask for 10. Some people will go and ask for 8. Some people will go and ask for 6. Never ask for 4. Never ask for 4. Never ask for 2. Never ask for 3. Because that is you taking your value down. That is a self-imposed ceiling and limit that you have put on you that you don't need to. People are going to put limits on our earnings all the time, especially if you look like us, especially if you're from an ethnic minority, especially if you're a woman, especially if you are from a low-income background. We already have those limits imposed on us. Don't do it to yourself. Don't. And look, some of you might go, do you know what? I'm going to start with the 10. If they don't meet me there, I'm going to go down to 8. The minimum I'm willing to accept is 6. You might not get 6, you might still get 4, but you don't go in asking for that. I can't tell you what that is that you should ask for. That is personal to you and how your confidence feels. But let me tell you one thing. Whatever you ask for, the thing you're going to get is always going to be lower than that. Very rarely, in fact, only once in my career, have I known a situation where someone has asked for a number and the counteroffer has been higher. That has happened once, and that's when I did it to someone. A very, very talented woman went for a role and she basically told me what she was getting paid where she was, and it was more than I was going to offer her. But when I did a comparison against men in her role and women in her role, I realised she would have been underpaid compared to the men. So I actually gave her more on the counteroffer. That doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen to everyone. Therefore, you've got to start with what you want and what you know that number to be. So that is the first thing. Know your worth, have data points, apply science, and be brave enough to not go lower than you should. Now, the second thing that you need to know is negotiation can happen at any time. Best time to negotiate your salary, your package, is when you start a role. The second best time is any time. Now, let's break this down. Let's start with when you go and get a new role. When you go and get a new role, there are loads of things you can negotiate that aren't just about your base pay. And there's a lot people don't know about. So I'm talking from experience as a corporate exec, and I've moved around a number of organizations. Here's the kind of things I've negotiated. So when you start a job, you can negotiate things like your base salary. We all know about that. What do I want? What is my magic number? What is the external market paying? And if you know the internal market too. Same data points that I mentioned before, but you go in and you negotiate your base salary. The second thing you can negotiate is bonus. So what is the percentage that you pay in bonus? So an organization might say, well, annually we pay a 20% bonus. And I might go in and say, well, I'm used to achieving as a high achiever a 40% bonus or a 50% bonus. I might have come from somewhere where there's no bonus, and I would say 20% sounds like a great bonus. It is all relative to where you are and what you want. But most good organizations will check where you are, so make sure that those jumps aren't unbelievable in terms of what you're asking for. But you can negotiate your bonus, and normally that's as a percentage. You should also find out what are the conditions of that bonus. So some people might say, well, it's about how many deals you close. It's about how many sales you make. It could be about how much income you generate. In other organizations, which is more common, it could say it's based on a number of goals that we will agree outright. And if you meet those goals, you'll get a 25% bonus. If you exceed those goals, you get a 40% bonus. And the maximum bonus we can award to anybody is 60%. We rarely, kind of offer that, etc. So you can negotiate what those bonus percentages are, but more importantly, what's good to know at the outset is what is it that will dictate how much you're paid in that bonus, and make sure that you know that. Then the third thing that you can negotiate is the job title. Now, some people care about this, some people don't. Your job title matters in some cases, not all. You might want to think about whether it really tracks externally. So if someone offered me a role and I really wanted to signal that I was moving in a different direction, I might negotiate what the job was called. There's often negotiation for this and people have wiggle room. Sometimes there's not. Now, I mean, if you're going in as an analyst and you want to, request the title of a director of analysis, they're not the same thing. But you can negotiate on what you want your job title to be. That's not one I would die on a hill about, because on CVs, you can change job titles slightly so they track well externally and they translate, but you can negotiate that. But let's get to the money stuff that you can negotiate. I have negotiated before a sign-on bonus. So when I've left a company and I've gone to another one, I have had to give up my bonus at the other company. So the company I was leaving, let's say I had a 20 grand bonus, I've had to give that up. So when I got to the new company, I said, I'm giving that bonus up. I'm not willing to sign by giving up 20 grand. Now, there's two ways to negotiate that. The first is you say, I want you to buy me out of my old company. Yes, buy me out of my old company. And they will buy you out of that 20 grand. Now, they might say, I'm not going to give you that 20 grand. I'm going to give you 15 and I'll put 3 grand in your base salary. And with your pension contributions, etc., you're about net. That's up to you to do the math. But companies will buy you out, and it has happened before, and it will happen again to many people. And it's one thing that lots of people don't know and you're not taught. You can get your company, or your new company, to buy you out of your old company's bonus. So if you are staying somewhere because you think your bonus is going to pay out, remember, it can be bought out if that company wants you enough and if that's the kind of thing they do. So you should ask. Some companies will say, well, we can't buy you out when we're recruiting you. And this is what happened to me once. Someone said, well, we can't buy you out. But what we can do is give you a sign-on bonus. And I was like, okay, how much is that sign-on bonus? So we agreed the terms of that sign-on bonus. And by terms, the amount, when it would be paid, and what are the conditions in which it would be paid. And that sign-on bonus that I agreed was going to be paid to me within 6 months of being in the organisation. And in those 6 months, I would have had to hit 3 deliverables. One was an income one was a people one, and one was about closing out on a sale process. Now, those 3 things needed to be true for me to hit my sign-on bonus. 2.5 of those things happened, half didn't. And because that didn't happen, we had a conversation about the conditions around that at the time. But I still got the sign-on bonus that I was due, and I still got paid that because we had it confirmed and we had it in writing. So if you're in an organisation where you're getting a bonus, where you think, actually, I'm leaving in January, my bonus gets paid in March, I can't leave now, but this company want me to start right away. And the reason I'm not leaving is because I'm going to get this, 20 grand bonus or 10 grand bonus. I've got to stay for that because that's cash I've earned. You are right, you've earned it. But that doesn't mean that you can't get it somewhere else and you should talk yourself out of an opportunity. So just remember, you can absolutely ask. The really important thing in any of this stuff that you negotiate, whether it's base, bonus, job title, buyouts, sign-on bonuses, is that you must have it in writing. There are so many people I come across that tell me, I was expecting this. I was told this. I was told I'd get a pay rise at this point. I was told they weren't going to put that extra 5k in my base because they would do it in 3 months' time. And I keep saying, have you got receipts? Where is that in writing? Show me. And people don't have it written down. Those things are important. Now, look, there's one other thing that you can absolutely negotiate that not a lot of organisations do, but the ones who do them pay them out well, and it's worth considering. Some organisations will offer you an LTIP or a LTSP, long-term investment plan or long-term share plan. And what that is if you stay a certain amount of years, we will pay this money to you at that period. If you stay here 5 years, we will pay you, and I'm making up numbers, right? 10 grand. Some organisations say, if you stay 3 years, I will give you shares up to the value of 60 grand. Fintechs give shares a lot. Big corporates used to give a lot of long-term investment plans, but they are also things that you might be offered in a negotiation deal that you should definitely not shy away from. But again, what are the conditions? Normally, it's about how long you stay. And this is what companies do to try and retain you. To invest in you, they say there's a monetary value attached to that. We want you to stay. We have brought you in as talent. We want you to come and change this organization. And if you stay long enough to be in this organization, make an impact, transform it, we are going to pay you for that. That is super important to know. So that is also something you can negotiate. But again, make sure you have it written down. One of the biggest things that keeps us held back in terms of money is mindset. Let's talk about money mindset. So there's a couple of things that I can think about that are really important when it comes to money mindset. The first thing is scarcity mindset. So a lot of people I know who come from backgrounds like mine, and especially if you grew up in an immigrant household or you came from kind of a low income background, you would have been told things like, be grateful for what you've got. I had less than you when I was growing up. Do you know how hard I had to work to just earn £1 or £5 or £10? I came here with nothing. You might have been scraping by when you were younger. You might have had very, very little money to be able to buy the necessities in life. So what happens is when you go into the world of work and you start getting paid more than your parents ever got paid, more than you thought you would get paid growing up, you go into that thinking, I now have more money than I thought I would have. And as a result of that, you start thinking that that is enough, that is more than you should have ever been entitled to, that is something that deserves so much gratitude that you can't possibly ask for more. Gratitude is essential. We should absolutely be grateful in terms of where we are and where we've come from. But what happens from that mindset perspective is you stop then negotiating, asking for more, even though you know other people are getting more, even though you know you could get more, even though you know you deserve more. Never let gratitude talk you out of your coins. Never let gratitude talk you out of what you deserve. The second thing is we think that money is going to run out. So when you come from very little, when you come from maybe, things like I did where there was just loads of bills, right? There was loads of bills. We always had enough, but it was, it's like we might not have enough money. We might not have enough money. You grow up where you kind of live in paycheck to paycheck. My mum used to get paid like cash in hand for being a seamstress or a machinist, right? And the guy used to give her money in an envelope. And that used to be her ration for the week. So when you come from that mindset and you hear these things around you in your home, you think money is going to run out. That gives you a scarcity mindset. So you end up thinking, no matter how much money I've got, it's never going to be enough. And by that, you think you always need more money, but you're scared to ask for that more money because you've already got more than you ever imagined. So the first mindset is about gratitude. This one is about scarcity. I need more, I need more, I need more. But I've already got so much, I don't want to tempt fate. And that can be a learned behavior through cultural heritage, through our parents, through our upbringing. Money can run out 100%. But if you always show up like that with the scarcity mindset of, oh my God, there's not enough for me, you will never ask for what you deserve. Meanwhile, somebody else will. Just remember that every time you're not asking for it, you are leaving money on the table that someone else will ask for and someone else is entitled to. You should have got it, but you just didn't ask. So that scarcity mindset often holds us back as well. My mindset with money and my relationship with money has changed over time. And I'll give you a couple of things or stories that have happened to me that are really, really important to know. So the first thing is when I got my first external job, I left a job for £27,000 and got my first job outside of a company for £40,000. So that's a 13 grand jump. That 40 grand was going to be life-changing for me, for my mum. I was living at home. I was like, this is going to change my life. And I knew I wasn't going to get that 40 grand in the company that I was in. I knew they were never going to pay me that. I was a top performer and they paid me a £200 bonus. I was never going to get 40 grand there. So I jumped for 13 grand, which was a shitload of money, right? 2 years later, the guy that hired me, the guy who called me and said, I've got a job for you, I want you, the guy who offered me the job on the spot in the interview said to me, I would have paid you anything you wanted. I was willing to go up to 60, but not one person in my life told me that I could negotiate. I don't think anybody in my life knew that. 40 grand from 27 grand was the biggest jump in my life as I'd known it. And it was more money than anybody in my family had seen. Why would I ask for more? So I let my gratitude and maybe also my shock talk me out of my coins. Now I would never not negotiate, right? Unless the offer is already amazing. And that offer was amazing and maybe I did the right thing. But when I knew that, I thought, oh my God, somebody else who isn't from my background, who wasn't raised like I was, who might have phoned a friend, who might have phoned home, might have phoned their parents, because I said I'd think about it, might have phoned someone else they knew and someone else would have said, ask for more. Don't accept the first offer. Because listen, the first offer is only the final offer if you say it is. Companies always have more in their back pocket. People have a range of money that they can offer. People don't go in with saying, I'm just going to offer that person 50 grand and that's it. No. It will be between 45 and 60 maybe. Or it might be between 50 and 55. You should always counter offer unless the offer is too good already, in the example I gave you with the lady in my team. The second thing is I have learned to always, always, always have money stashed away in case something bad happens. There's a whole other episode on that and we'll talk about it. But me and my husband were having a conversation and we had a chat about work-life balance, a bunch of other things, right? And we are very, very different in how we work and how we live, etc. And he said to me, what if, and he always loves to ask really hypothetical random questions, right? But he said to me, what if you could go and work 3 days a week for the equivalent pay, not the same pay, the equivalent, i.e. you work 3 days a week and your current salary is prorated and you have 2 days of leisure. You know, live your life, you can do Pilates, you can do whatever. He said, would you do that? And I said, no. Nothing in my mind can compute that I could have less money. There's always got to be more money in my mind because I'm so worried that I have got responsibilities. I'm so worried that this will run out. I'm so worried that what I have now, what I've built and the success I've got and the money I've got is too good to be true that it can all get taken away from me. So there is absolutely no way in my mindset or no space for anything reducing. If I ever had to take a pay cut, I would try and make that money up in other ways. Now, I know that's not how life works, but that is something that's ingrained in me because I'm so worried because of how little I came from. And it was just a very interesting thing that I didn't know about myself. But when he asked me that question, I was able to answer straight away. Whereas for him, he was like, yeah, absolutely. 2 days doing nothing. I'll take that. And it's because we came from different upbringings. It's because we came from different relationships around money. Our parents grew up, with different circumstances around money. So that's really, really interesting that your mindset around money will define how you show up in certain situations and negotiations. I said earlier as well, the best time to negotiate is not just when you start a job, it's any time. There is a myth out there, or there is a belief by people that the only time you can negotiate a salary is when you start a job. If you're in an organization that you've been in a long time, or you are just, kind of moving internally, you're doing your next move, you can still ask for more money. You can ask for money when you move jobs. You can ask for money when you're in a job. You can ask for money at any time you want. But the best time to ask for money is when you've got leverage. And leverage means you're at the top of your game. You're visible. Your performance is speaking for itself. You've got data points. I delivered this. I said we were going to do this and we actually did this. I was meant to move the needle by 5%. I've actually moved the needle by 10%. You've got your data points. You've got your research and you can ask for that pay rise. Do not ever think that there is a bad time to ask for a pay rise. If you believe that your performance warrants it, if you believe that your comparison in your internal and external market warrants it, and if you believe that you deserve it and you want to ask for it, go and ask for it. So many people don't get pay rises when they stay in an organization outside of the normal cyclical ones where you get, your 2, 3, 4, 5%, whatever they are in your company. People don't negotiate because they feel like they can't. And a lot of people don't ever move jobs. They stay in the same job for 5, 6 years. That means that outside of the organization giving you pay rises and outside of the one you might have got when you moved into a job, you're not ever going to ask for more money, but you would have got better and better as time's gone on in that job. Recently, someone I know who's super, super talented got a job. And she got a job in the organization she already works in. She's a high performer. She's super talented, really credible at what she does, right? And I don't know anybody who does it as well as her. And she said to me, oh, I've got that job. And I was like, oh my God, congratulations. She went, oh, I'm not going to ask for any money because it's internal and I'm just so glad I got it. So what do you mean you're not going to ask for more money? You just got a new job. And that means that loads of people interviewed for that job. You were the best one out of everybody that interviewed. They made you an offer for the job. Why would you not ask for more money? Why would you leave money on the table? That just absolutely doesn't make any sense. So as you approach money and you think about money and your beliefs around money, just remember, you are entitled to negotiate at any time. The best time to negotiate is when you start a job in a new organization. The second best time is any time, but make sure you've got leverage. Make sure you are at your best. Figure out and really reflect on what is my mindset around money? What are my beliefs? What are the ingrained cultural beliefs in me that I have that really show up when I think about money and asking for more money? Never ask for more money than you have data for. Show up with evidence, do your research, and remember, don't take a number lower than you deserve, but the number's always going to go down. So you've got to start high. If we all start negotiating and practicing negotiating like it's a skill, we will all show up differently and get paid what we deserve. I'll end with this. Every time, as a woman, as an ethnic minority, or someone from a low income background, we don't ask for more money, we leave money on the table, we are further widening the gender pay gap, the ethnicity pay gap, the social mobility pay gap. That is already hard enough on all of us. We are all impacted by it already. So when we are in positions where we can negotiate and get more money, why would we further widen that? We are responsible for making that smaller through negotiation and getting what we deserve. Just remember, you're not just doing this for you. You've got to ask for that money because it means limits that have been imposed on communities like ours and people that look like us will then start to come down, and they will make better starts for the people that are coming after us. Whilst it shouldn't be our responsibility to do that and the system should change, remember what I said. The system is the system. These are the rules that nobody teaches us. We've got to play by different rules if we want to win in this system. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for listening.